In this video, we will talk about Project 2, the wedding program design. So first we're going to take a look at program directions. And it is for you to create a wedding program for an upcoming wedding. This is a one-page design, and what that means is it's going to be on one piece of paper, but the printed text or the printed images and printed text will be on both sides of one piece of paper. And that's why you have a front side and a back side. And in InDesign, you need to create two separate pages. Each of the pages is going to be one side of a double-sided page. Let me know if that sounds a little unclear. I'll try to explain it a little bit. In the directions, I include a screenshot of a sample, and you can see the content behind it barely, but then I describe how I'm going to discuss the components of each page. Now, you see here there's page 1. This is one page. Page 2, this is the second page. You're going to create two pages in InDesign, and you're going to set it up a certain way so that it folds correctly. So when this is printed, if you have a double-sided printer and you don't have to print this, you're just going to send it to me. But if we were really doing this, you would print this out to a double-sided printer. If you don't have a double-sided printer or a printer that prints in duplex, then you would print one side, flip it over, put it back in the printer, and then print the other side. It's a little tricky, so you have to make sure you figure out how to position the first printed page to go back into the second one. And it can be a little tricky, but I have done it all the time for a number of clients when I didn't have a printer that had the nice duplex feature. So this is the first page. This is the second page. It is very important to take a look at how the pages are set up so that they fold correctly. On this page 1 and page 2, each page is divided in half, and the text goes in two of the halves, except it does not extend into the borders. And so I'm calling each part of the page a panel. So this is where the front cover is going to be, and this is where the back cover is going to be. So when you place the text, you're not going to place it in order. You're going to place it in this order, so when you fold it, it comes out correctly. And that's what you have to know, and sometimes you have to print out a sample so that you figure out what goes where, because logically you would think that the cover would start on the left part of page 1, and it doesn't. It starts on the right panel. So this is where you have the information about where the wedding is going to happen, and this is where you're going to put the picture of the happy couple. And then the back cover is where the acknowledgments are going to be. And then inside left panel is going to be wedding ceremony information. And on the right panel of page 2, this is going to be the wedding party. So everybody that's going to be involved in the wedding. And that's pretty much it. The challenge is taking all of this text and formatting it so that it looks well and it's readable on all 4 panels, and there's unity across the panels, which means we use consistent fonts for subheads, headings, body copy, and anything else that we use. So this is just some further explanation of what the project is. Here's a sample. I provide a sample. I've also provided this in PDF so that you can take a look at it. This is not the best sample. It is a sample. You do not have to follow this design to the letter. This design, let me zoom in here so that you can take a look. Here's the PDF that is included with the assignment. This gives you a zoomed in look. Knowledge is on the left and the cover panel on the right. So looking at this, there are a couple things that I would like to that I would like to have people address. When it comes to and, you could put a ampersand here instead of AND. And in some cases, a celebration of marriage goes over top of the photo. And you can move this around and do some creative things if you like, but it should make some sense in how you do that. You can add borders to your panels, but I have a very specific way that I want you to do that. And if you don't do it the way that I want you to do it, then I'm going to send it back and ask you to do that. And let me explain a couple other things as well, so that we have so that you understand the terminology that I'm using. The word acknowledgments and the word wedding ceremony and the word the wedding party, I am calling those panel headings. And then I'm using the word body copy to include any text that is in paragraph format. That's a general description of what body copy is. So those two paragraphs. And I also consider everybody's name to be body copy as well. The names of the songs, anything that you see to the left. So we're going to talk about the issues with this document and how you can make yours even better so you don't get any points taken off. There's also a nice little design element here. There are a couple questions about where do I put two colors? Do I need two colors? Well, they use a border here that's it's a light blue or some type of a bluish color that meets that criteria. So here's the cover, here's the acknowledgement page. Now, let me tell you what I call subheads. To our parents, to our family and friends. The prelude, entrance of parents, entrance of bridesmaids, entrance of flower girls, entrance of the bride, welcome and purpose, scripture readings, message to the bride and groom, all of these parts of the wedding. Matron of honor, best man, bridesmaid, groomsman, flower girl. They're sort of headings, but we call them subheads. And I want you to format them exactly the same. They're not exactly the same in this example, so don't follow this example to the letter. So, to our parents and all the other subheads, I need you to use the same exact font. And if you're going to use a different color there, use a different color for everything. Use the same exact size. So the font means typeface, font size, any other formatting that you give it. Because I want this to be consistent across the 4 panels. One of the tricky parts that you'll have to do is create leader dots. And one more thing. You cannot modify any of the content for this wedding. Imagine that this wedding is really going to happen and you cannot change anything so that you don't surprise the bride and groom and all of their guests on their special wedding day. Leave everything exactly the same. If you find an error, let the client know, let your boss know, Dr. Johnson, and then we'll deal with it from there. A lot of times when clients give you content, it will have errors in it. It won't look very nice. If they could make it very nice, they wouldn't need you. And so most of the time you will have to go in and do some cleanup to make it look better. In this case, this is Microsoft Word, and I've just opened up the file in Microsoft Word. You can make your edits here. A lot of the formatting that you can do in Microsoft Word will transfer into InDesign. Some things won't. So if you do tables and complicated things like that, InDesign doesn't like those things. and in most cases it won't place it, or it won't place it correctly, or it looks really bad. So we want to stick to the basics here. Most of the content is bolded that should be bolded and things like that, but this isn't the correct font. So you could modify the font here or do it in InDesign. I'm going to do it in InDesign. So I'm just looking through here, and of course there are some differences in this content because this is updated content compared to the sample that you saw. And you notice here that each of the panels has a label so that you know where to stop the text and start it on the next panel. But do not include the name of the panel in the actual panel. So the panel should start, this cover panel, with a celebration of marriage U19, and then the picture, then the names, then the date, the time, and the location. This should all be centered unless you have some other kind of creative approach, and I would have to take a look at that, but I'm expecting this to be centered. And once again, this is the more recent information. Stick to this information, not the information that's on the sample, which is a little bit older than this information. So here we have the celebration of marriage at the top, and then you have the picture. Now, where do you get the picture from? That's a good question. The same way that we did with Project One. Just go on the internet and do a simple search, or you could go to Adobe Stock and do a search there. And once again, if you went to Adobe Stock, don't buy anything and just save the sample from there, and then you're going to get a watermark in it, and no one wants a watermark. So I wouldn't do that. However, if you're new to Creative Cloud or you haven't been to the Adobe Stock in a while, they give you 10 free images. So you can use one of your free images to download the happy couple. So I don't have any requirements for the happy couple as long as they're happy. If they don't look happy, then they're not a happy couple, and then I don't want them in the flyer. Okay? I mean, I don't want them in the wedding program. You can put them in your own personal wedding program. I need to have 2 people, and that's my only requirement. So you can select any 2 people that look happy, that look like they're about to get married. And if you can fulfill those requirements, then that's fine. Okay, so I'm not asking you to place anything more specific than that. So there are definitely some nice ones here. That's a nice one there, but you don't get a close-up on the couple, so that's probably not the greatest one, but I do like the little heart shape that they're making. I decided on this happy couple here. They look very happy. They're not looking exactly right at the camera, so I think we can still work with that. So I'm going to use this one, and all I did was right-click and save it on my computer. And then I made a folder. Well, I made a folder first, and I'm going to put everything in that folder. So images, anything else, and the text also. Jumping back to the program. The file, it mentions in the program that there's a file. You have to use the content that's provided. See the attachment at the bottom. To see the attachment at the bottom, there are a couple ways you can do it. What I do is I always go to the assignment and click on the hyperlink there. And then scroll to the bottom. And when you scroll to the bottom, here's the text file that you need to use. Don't retype this. Use this file. If I see some mistakes, then I'll ask you to correct them. And then the sample PDF is here too. So I've just downloaded that to my computer. So let's go back here. You don't have to use borders in your design. This is just a sample. Using a border will make things a little bit more complicated, but you can do it. But make sure the border looks appropriate. If not, I'm going to ask you to change it. If you decide to use borders, use a border on all of the 4 panels. This one only has borders on 3. It just looks a little off without having all 4. So if you're going to do it, do all 4. Now, if you just want to do a border on the first page, on the first panel, you could. But if you're going to put it on more than one, just put it on all of them. Now, the tricky part here is this. I need you to place the border so that it still has the space necessary. So when you fold this down the middle, you still have the proper layout and a proper spacing between each panel. Now, in between these two panels is a column. This is a 2-column grid, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. In here is an inch. This is inch wide. This column gutter, we call it, is an inch wide, because when you fold it, it's going to make a perfect 1/2 inch on both sides, and top, bottom, left and right. That's why we have 1 inch here. If you do not have an inch here, when you fold this, it's going to be off. You may want to print your work to see what it looks like, to make sure everything is symmetrical. Once again, InDesign will let you place content with razor-like precision, and I want you to utilize that. And I'm going to tell you how to make this setup in razor-like precision. Because if you don't, you're just sort of using the eye test, and we're going to print out 200 copies of this. Not really, but in real life, yes. So you want to make sure there are no mistakes, and also everything is aligned properly and it looks great. And you can do this in InDesign. And there are a lot of other programs out there that won't let you get this specific, and we'll talk about it. So that's enough about the sample. Let's go to InDesign. And start. So the first thing you want to do is go to File, New. It's a new document. Easy enough. My computer is a little slow. So let's go with default design. And our orientation is going to be landscape, not portrait. Portrait is what we use for the flyer. We're going to use landscape for the wedding program. So click on landscape. That's going to change the width. It's 11 inches and the height. Make sure you're using inches. And yes, unless you're a pica or points person and you are used to using it. If not, just like I mentioned in Project 1, don't use anything else. Just use inches. It's fine. It'll make things more simple. Facing pages. Do you need this? You don't have to have this selected. What facing pages will do is it'll let you see both pages at the same time, so you can see if they're lined up properly. So we're gonna do that, but you don't have to. But try it. If you don't like it, you can change it. The number of pages are 2. Once again, 2 pages. Each page represents a side of a 1-page printed document. Okay. Columns. We're going to have 2 columns. The default is 1 column. As I mentioned in the Project 1 video, a single blank page is considered 1 column. To me, I don't think of it that way. It's really only 2 columns. Well, you could say 1 big column that's 8.5 by 11 inches high and 11 inches wide, if you want to be technical about it. So we have 2 pages, 2 columns, and the column gutter, which I just talked about, we want to be 1 inch. So we're going to type in there. You could also use the up and down arrows, whatever works for you. The margin, 0.5 inches top, bottom, inside, outside. This link icon here will allow you to make a change to 1. And once you hit enter, it'll change it in all 4 if you want everything symmetrical, or if you want the margins to be identical. And we do in this case. We just want them 0.5. Just wanted to show you that real quick. If you deselect that, then you can change the margins of each of the top, bottom, inside, and outside, and they can be different. I'm going to skip bleed and slug, we don't need those for this assignment. So I think we're ready. Click create. There's our page. Well, this is one page. And of course, this white area here is the pasteboard. This is the page. This is the margin guide, the 0.5 inch or ½ inch. And this is the 1 inch column. And we're going to fold this right down the middle at the 5½ inch mark. We don't really need this ruler guide, so I'm not going to bring it on. Just wanted to show it to you. If you didn't know how I did that, I took my pointer, click, hold, and drag anywhere over top of a ruler. You can bring it in on the top or the bottom. To get rid of it, you can move it off the page, or you can click on it and delete it. It's a little tricky to click on it, but you can do it. So that's it. So this is one page. Well, where's the other page? We scroll up and down. It's nowhere to be found. So what do we do if we can't find the page? Because it's a little tricky. Let's go to the Pages panel. Click on that. And that shows us that our 2 pages they're staggered. Because when we actually create a printed document, a book or things like that, they generally start on the right side. If you open a book, the book cover takes the left side, and the text generally starts on the right. So that's why page 1 starts on the right. And so you see my 2 pages. To get to the pages, there are a couple different ways that you can do it. Down at the bottom, you can navigate here. Down here, you can type in, and it's hard to see, but you can type in the number of page, where you want to go, or you could click your next arrow to get to pages that way. It's a little tricky to navigate that way, so I use the Pages panel. We're on page 1. Double click on page 1. It takes us to page 1. Can't really tell, so let's just do something real quick. Alright, so let's say this is page 1. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to double click here on page 2. I just cut and paste, and it's just page 2 there. This is just to show you that you can navigate from page 1 to page 2 by double clicking on the pages, the page icons here that represent the physical pages. So we want to have a facing page setup, and we click the check box, and it happens, and it'll do it, but it just won't do it when you have just 2 pages. So if we actually add another page, and there are a couple ways that you can do that, but if you go down to the bottom of the page, let me just break this off from what we're doing, resize this a little bit. The panels are very cool if you have not had experience with them. So we put the Pages panel here. We pulled it off from where the panels are on the left here. If I deleted it and went back to Window and clicked on Pages, it would reappear exactly where I left it. If I'm finished using it, I can click and drag anywhere away from something that would look like a button and just drag it back over to where the other panels are, where all the panels are. And if I let my hand go, once I see the blue lets me know it's ready to attach. It'll attach itself. And then another cool thing is you just click, hold, and drag it back out. And there are little icons here that'll make them expand and contract. And let's say I want to do something with the stroke too. I can drag the stroke out, and I can do the same thing. There's some right arrows here that means expand, so we'll expand that. Now if I want to link the 2 together, click, hold, drag along this top banner, and once you see that blue, then it lets you know it can attach. And now that we attached it, we can move them both together, and we can drag them back over, and it'll place them back where all the panels are. So We'll talk a little bit about master pages in future projects, and this is where you would add things to the master pages here. These are the masters. We'll talk about those in Project 4. Project 4. So what I really want to do is have these facing pages, and I want to have 1 and 2 right beside each other. The way to do that is there is a triple icon here. Most people call them hamburger if you're on a web page. If you click here, you get another dialog box, and you come down here, and I just want you to deselect allow selected spread to shuffle. When you deselect that, then it'll allow you to click, hold, and drag the first page, well, page 2, up and beside page 1. And you know you're ready to take your hand off of the mouse once you see the icon. There's a line that you'll see right beside the page 1 icon, and then you let your hand go. And now page 1 and page 2 are right next to each other. And that's pretty cool. And I think we should be able to, let's see, fit page in window. That's going to look at each page. And I think if we fit spread in window, we have both spreads there. Okay. But we don't need both spreads right now. I'm just going to look at page 1. And we're going to close. We're going to just, let's just drag it back over the page panel for now. I think we're fine with that. And then I'll just delete that. We don't need that. So this is how you set up the page. This is, once you do this, this is, I don't want to say this is half of the battle, but if you don't set this up properly, nothing else is going to work. Now you need to put the text in properly. So let me talk real quick about the borders. If you want to put a border here, I want your border to rest on the margin and column guides of each of the 4 panels. And what I mean by that is you can go to your rectangle tool. You can click, hold, and drag. And I'm just click, holding, and dragging. I let my hand go. And I just drew a box right along the margin guides. And it just blends in with the guides. You can tell that it's blue, but you really have to look really closely to see it. So what I'm going to do is add a stroke to it of 2 points. Now you should be able to see it. And see how that is lined up perfectly. And so if you're going to do 2 of these, we can edit, copy, edit, paste. And then now you have 2 borders. And if you wanted to add them, again, you can add them on the page 2. So that's pretty much how you would do that. And if you wanted to do some fancy things, there are some different styles that you can create. You probably can't see those until we make the border a little thicker. Let me make it a little bit thicker so that you can see. Now the only challenge is when you place your text, you're going to place your text so that it anchors within each of the panels. And so the text, the edge of the text, is going to be very close to touching, if not touching, some of the border. So later on in this video, I'll tell you how I need you to fix that. There are a couple ways that designers try to fix this issue. They will make the text frame smaller so that it fits within the box. But that makes it very difficult because now you have 4 separate boxes, 1 in each panel, or 4 separate text frames that are hovering inside of a border. And then sometimes people will try to do something like this. They'll place a border outside of the margin guides, right? That's a way that you can cheat and do it too. The only problem is you're going to have to do 4 of these. And to make sure that they're aligned properly, you just can't do it by hand. You're going to have to do some complex acrobatics to make sure that it looks like it's close. But when you zoom in, this isn't even close. And so, like I said, 200 people are looking at this design. So to make sure it works properly, I like to align them right inside the box. Also, once you start to encroach into the margin guide area, once you fold it, now it's throwing off the spacing in between the panels.